our Synergy bonus. I am Vegorax. This is the Spoony Paladin himself. And as usual, we have Greg lingering half off screen. This is our third person over the shoulder kind of shooting.
I wish this was our third
It makes sense.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I hate
Get in here under our umbrella.
I hate
stop it.
third person over the shoulder and just it's terrible.
Anyways, closer once I'm done.
We will talk about that another time.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about something that we've touched on a couple different times. Another tight gaming type that we
once
like.
Again, venturing into the world of darkness.
This time we're going to be talking about Werewolf the Wild West,
which is I think the second title in White Wolf's venture into alternative time period settings. Just came out right after Vampire Dark Ages. Was followed up very quickly. Yeah, it was followed up very quickly by the Mage, the Sorcerer's Crusade, and right about the same time this came out, or shortly after, we had the Victorian Age Vampire game.
Mage, the Sorcerer's Crusade.
Yeah. Summer 1498.
Yeah, 1498.
There's an advertisement.
Anyways, we love tabletop RPGs, and from time to time we'll talk about them. And this is our first time talking about the World of Darkness, as Trav pointed out. The setting is obviously werewolf.
Actually, I said we were once again venturing into the World of Darkness, but okay.
When did we venture into it last?
Well, that's specifically last Monday, but
right.
We haven't talked about it.
We haven't talked about it. This is our first time here talking about it.
So this is our first foray into the World of Darkness.
Yes, we've talked about Mutants and Masterminds, D&D, and now a World of Darkness setting.
Publishing, yep. This was released in 1997 under the design team of Justin Achille and Ethan Skemp. Justin Achille, of course, also famous for being one of the minds behind the design of Exalted, which we will talk about at a later date, and over 100 of the Vampire the Masquerade books.
I've never played Exalted. We have it over here.
That's why we'll talk about it at a later date after we've had a chance to play test it.
If we ever play test it. I want to, but it's just me. Anyways,
it's finding time.
It's finding time, finding people who want to.
Finding a week where we're not running an already established game.
True.
So, Werewolf the Wild West takes the established Werewolf the Apocalypse setting and sets us down in the middle of the 19th century. It's got tips for playing just before, during, and after the American Civil War.
I think we should kind of touch on how different a White Wolf game is compared to like the Mutants and Masterminds or our D20 games like D&D and Pathfinder and whatnot.
Okay.
Social attributes are not your fucking dubstep. This is politics, the game.
Well, not even that. The way
it can be.
The way things are rolled and whatnot.
The first thing you're going to notice is that this is a D10 system. So rather than doing all the crazy math and assigning, a number of ranks to whatever skill it is you're going to look at,
it's basically a lighter, easier version of Shadowrun's D6 system.
You've got all of your attributes here, and there's a quick view, but I'm sure we'll have a bigger
view
picture of that later. And they're all ranked from 1 to 5, and the number of dots that you put into an attribute, 1 being you kind of know what you're doing, to 5 being you are among the best in the world at this particular skill or ability, determines the number of dice that you receive. For your dice pool, you roll those dice, and the number that come up as a 6 or higher are successes, and the number of successes determine not just whether or not you are successful, but how successful you are to the action you are attempting to take.
And
that was a mouthful.
Everything's broken down between physical, social, and mental. Mm-hmm. So you get some pretty interesting rolls. I'll tell you that much.
Rolls,
strength, empathy.
Roll, manipulation, drive.
I could actually see that.
That's like if you're trying to scare the shit out of someone by driving like a psychopath.
Or you're riding in the car with someone and you are just intimidating the shit out of them.
Actually, the role I was referencing was a guy who was going to drive. We had an NPC who was very beaten and battered, and he was in a parking lot, sort of laying on a curb because he'd literally just been curb stomped. And we were, I think, about to start interrogating this guy, and one of our characters was a professional stuntman. That was his concept, his backstory, and he decided he was going to take the group's van and drive full speed as fast as the thing would go, top speed of like 98 miles an hour, and stop with the bumper an inch from our target's face just to make him, shit his pants.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a difficulty 10.
And he succeeded admirably.
I've thought of another one. Charisma Craft.
Yeah, I could find use for that.
Using power tools to interrogate the shit out of someone and terrify them.
It's true.
Anyways, be charisma intimidate with a modifier for your skill in craft. But
if you haven't guessed it, with this game in particular, you play a werewolf creature.
No, it's not the Lon Chaney. You got bit by a werewolf style. You are eco freedom fighters.
It's also genetic. You're just born that way. We take the X-Men route, and you're on a sacred quest to save Mother Earth from evil spirits and corruption. But that gets downplayed a bit in this one. No, it doesn't. In the contemporary setting, it, as he said, eco-terrorism plays a huge part in the setting. It's if you have a lazy game master, although they call it a storyteller.
Or you're playing
Ratkin. Because there are a lot of different ways you can address it. And you can play games that don't touch on it at all. It's just a stereotype that unfortunately gets attached to this game because it's the easiest route you could take.
Vampires is politics the game. This is eco-terrorism the game. Hunter is let's kill shit the game.
Again, if you have a lazy storyteller.
Or if you're trying to summarize.
But, in the contemporary setting, you're taking on pollution and big corporations, and it's got a very
Captain Planet feel.
Captain Planet meets Shadowrun kind of feel to it.
With a lot of murder.
Lots of murder.
And this
one steps back from that because there aren't big corporations and all that. We're right on the beginning of the steam revolution. The world is just starting to industrialize. So this one has more of it's the Wild West. This is a Cowboys versus Native Americans feel to it.
This has a very near and dear place to my heart because I love gunslingers. I enjoy Western style things. So this is right up our alley, and Trev here has run it a couple times.
Twice.
But
every time he runs it, he goes south.
It's so
literally he goes down to Tennessee.
I go west.
Well, he goes to Tennessee. And so it's like Trav can never run this game because he'll just leave us again.
You can absolutely run it. They just refuse to play.
I don't refuse to play. You're just going to leave it.
You just won't agree with the time period that it's completely acceptable for me to play this game. 1880s.
Nothing wrong with the 1880s.
That's when cartridges were actually standardized.
Unnecessary detail on a White Wolf game because a rifle is a rifle is a rifle.
At that point, I actually have the access to very primitive machine guns.
But again, you're a Wild West
cowboy, basically,
or
an
Indian. But you're also a
buffalo soldier, or
you're also a big scary werewolf that can
9 foot
basically cause all the
machine.
bisons to go run and die.
Bison
or be
killer.
extinct.
I'm the bison killer.
I remember Bison Killer. Stampeded all those bison into a dry gorge. Killed a herd.
I frightened them.
I get to play that game.
I frightened them by turning into my Krynos form, which is the big.
You were there for that game. That was the game you were the girl. That was the game you were the girl.
I think
I think that was the second time you ran it.
No, because the second time he ran it was with Noah.
Right? Yeah, and I was the guru all that.
The second time. Yeah, it was
that's
when you were the telegraph operator, right?
I don't remember what I was playing here, but anyways, we have more stories, and we'll be talking about those.
So it's got the basic White Wolf system of the D10 and all that. It's got the traditional yes, you're a werewolf, but they have their own culture. That's evolved over the millennial. They're broken down into social groups that they refer to as tribes.
Don't appropriate it.
I personally like how experience is given at this, and there's also a secondary experience called renown. Is that correct?
I wouldn't refer to it as experience, but it is sort of it's something that we'll get into renown.
Yeah.
Go ahead on that.
But I like the way it's portrayed. You have basically what is it, Gilead? Or what?
Those are okay. Rather than I started on this. Rather than in a D&D situation or a Pathfinder situation, you've got your race, class, and so on. Werewolf breaks it down a little differently. You've got your race is how you were born. What were your parents? Were you born as a human? Were you born as a wolf? Or were you born to two werewolves born in full werewolf form, which means that you're deformed, an outcast, and a social pariah, referred to as a metis. But you have access to a bunch of different gifts and abilities that nobody else gets to, which is nice as you're digging new latrines for the werewolf town, because nobody wants to talk to you.
The art is fantastic, and this just as a side note.
As in most werewolf books, the art is
here.
phenomenal. It's hopefully we'll get some pictures up when we get some cutting through this.
Werewolves biting and eating horses.
Yep. And that takes care of your race. Are you a Hamid, a Lupus, or a Metis? Your class is kind of reflected in what they refer to as auspices, which are determined by the moon that your character was born under. And it's sort of your niche and your role both in your pack and in werewolf society as a large. As a large? As a whole.
As a whole.
As a whole, by and large. And you've got the new moon is the warrior, is sort of the apex of what the werewolf is supposed to be. You go out and you kill stuff. I mean, there's a lot more nuance to it.
The class.
We'll get to that. There's a lot more nuance to it than that. You might, rather than be a front lines fighter, you might be a brilliant tactician back in the tent. But you are
or scout.
A scout in some way, shape, or form. You are the embodiment of the warrior. The next one would be the gibbous moon, which is the gallery.
Technically, it'd be either a waxing or a waning gibbous, because gibbous is not specific enough.
We'll get to that too.
Person who took an astronomy class.
Yes. The gibbous moon would be a galliard, which is the bard class. Your job is to pay attention to what your group does, be able to tell the group stories back at camp so they can get that renown that Doug mentioned earlier, and basically know things. Like, we're in this weird situation. What in the world is that monster down there? Well, I heard a story.
Was it about Moon again?
Yes, it was. And as Greg mentioned, there's waxing and waning gibbous, and this sort of reflects on your personality. If you were born under a waxing moon, where it's getting fuller, you're more optimistic and upbeat and positive. If you were born under a waning moon, you tend to be more downbeat and cynical and maudlin.
Yeah, that totally doesn't fit with me.
See? And for a fun little thing, you can actually look up online and find out what moon you were born on. I happen to have been born on a half moon, which makes me the next group, a Philodox, the judge. And the judge's job is to settle disputes and mete out justice, and be a mediator among very large, hairy, bloodthirsty killing machines. It's a fun role. Mm-hmm. This is followed by the crescent moon, the Theurge, or Theurge?
I think I've always said
Theurge.
I've never heard anybody say that.
Theurgic, theological.
I'm sure. And their job is to be the mystic. They're the spellcaster shaman of this game, because the spirits are a very real thing for werewolves. They have a very animistic culture. Your job is to be able to
Waxing gibbous.
Cynical bard. Imagine that. So their job is very much to be the ones that deal with the spirits throughout the world, and they'll know all of the spells and the rituals. And once you start getting into the spiritual, mystical side of the game, rather than automation is bad and leads to corruption, let's go rip up those railroad tracks. That's a thing.
Makes sense, actually.
It really is.
You were born like 8 days before me a year earlier, so.
There you go. So.
He's waning.
I am. Have you not noticed I'm a cynical bastard who hates everything?
No, waning is going to be becoming full. Waxing is other way.
Right. His strength is waning doesn't mean he's getting stronger. It means he's getting weaker. A waning moon is when the light is getting weaker.
But in that case, I'm supposed to be the optimist. Someone's fucking dead wrong.
A little bit. And if you're the waxing spiritualist, Theurge, then you're going to be more along the positive and the healing and the conciliatory and the reclamation kind of magic. If you are the waning, darker side of things, you tend to deal more with the violent, corrupt spirits and some of the nastier aspects of werewolf spirituality. The final moon phase is no moon, which seems kind of weird.
New moon.
The new moon, yeah, which seems kind of weird for werewolf lore, changing shape under the full moon. And they are, they find a bit of humor in this because they are the trickster archetype. The
Coyote.
Coyote, Loki, Ananasi. They don't have to be the funny trickster. They can be very serious and deadly. One of the more interesting werewolves I ran into is these guys are called Ragabash. It was a Ragabash who had no sense of humor whatsoever. He was just very, very clever at making traps and such, and it was interesting. Now on top of that, we mentioned that there are tribes that go into this. And each tribe comes from a historical background, like they have the Black Furies are very much inspired by Greco-Roman mythology. Although in universe they inspired the Greco-Roman mythology, literally of the Furies. There are the Silver Fangs, who are all about Russian nobility. The Fianna, who figure prominently in this because they are the drunken Irishmen, and this is right about the time that nobody wanted the Irish after the potato famine, so they moved west. And that's why you have all that Celtic fringe in the not so deep south and in the close west, or in the near
The
west.
Scots Irish, the
Scots Irish
Ulstermen.
folks. Yep, exactly so. And so on down the line. And there are several native tribes. You've got the Wendigo that go northern Canada and that kind of stuff. You've got the Uktena, named for the underwater panther, and so on. And they're pretty much everywhere. They kind of have the mid-range temperate area. And then in the more southern, warmer areas, you had a group called the Croatan, who had, prior to this, sacrificed themselves to bind a huge, nasty, evil spirit referred to as the Storm Eater. And the meta plot of this game is that because the European werewolves didn't know any of this, they're doing a lot of stuff that's weakening the bonds on this spirit, and Storm Eater is coming back. Of course, if you're playing a European wolf, you don't know this.
The one thing I really like about this is all the lore and backstory and whatnot. It's very, very well done.
It's one of those things where you need to do a lot of reading both the books themselves and some actual history books if you want to be playing this well.
The nice part about World of Darkness books is they usually have further reading to get you in the mindset. Watch these movies, read these books.
Read these comic books. These I strongly recommend if you're gonna delve into this. Spend an afternoon with Jonah Hex, not the movie, the comics.
Or watch the Fistful of Dollars trilogy.
Fistful of Dollars trilogy. Yep.
Oh yeah,
for a few dollars, a Fistful of Dollars, a few dollars more. The good. The
it's just the Dollars trilogy.
Yeah.
The Man with No Name trilogy.
Yeah. It's
Although
often called.
He does have a name.
No, his character is actually the Man with No Name.
Tombstone actually works for this pretty good too.
Call down the thunder.
I'm your Huckleberry. Oh yeah, that whole "Call Down the Thunder" thing. That's a very Shadow Lord thing to say.
Oh, it's also very much a biblical quote.
Oh yeah. One of the big differences in this one, in contemporary werewolf, they have a tribe called the Glasswalkers, who are all about technology and computers, and they're the hacker wolf or hacktivist wolves and so on. There's no computers in this, obviously, so they're referred to as the Iron Riders.
I like the Iron Riders.
They just are all about the steam technology and riding the trains and laying rails. And that's why the Native American ones really don't like them and see them as corruptors who are releasing the Storm Eater.
However, my favorite tribe is still around. They just annoy the shit out of the Iron Riders, because now they are boxcar hobos.
It's actually really cool, is they actually included a timeline from 1827 to 1890.
Yep.
That's cool.
And I think right around there, yep.
Surrender of Geronimo, Bureau of Census.
Yeah, Storm Eater wakes up is in there, yep.
Death of Cochise.
Now, while he's flipping through that, I'm going to get back to, I said I would address Renown. Renown isn't really experience. You don't get, you get your experience points, and those are what you do to increase your skills and your abilities. Renown is a measure of your werewolf's standing within their society. And it's broken down into... There you go. We'll get to that.
That's why I was looking for
it. It's broken down into honor, glory, and wisdom.
Those are books.
And it's a measure of, okay, you're really well known and renowned for being wise, for coming up with smart plans. you're really renowned and well known for glory, for being great in combat. You're really renowned and well known for being honorable and, sticking to the code of the West or the code of the Wolves. Or,
Leave that over here.
well, the code of the Wolves is referred to as the Litany and so on. Oh boy. Something
no, it's a movie that I have a love-hate relationship with.
I can't wait to hear about that. And you earn renown through doing stuff and having your galliard reflect or relate back to, the local werewolf community what you've done. It's not enough to go out and do stuff. You have to have somebody report back. And as your story's circulating around, your renown grows, and then you rank up. And when you rank up, you get access to better powers and abilities and toys. Yeah, and it feels clunky, but because there's no XP cost associated with it, you're at the mercy of your game master and what he thinks is appropriate, and what is appropriate for your auspice, your moon phase, as I was talking about earlier, because different moon phases require different types of renown to rank up. If you are a fighter who is sitting around exercising honorable behavior all the time rather than, gloriously charging off into battle, you're not going to rank up all that fast. If you are a judge who makes a lot of boneheaded, wrong-headed calls or makes a lot of calls dishonestly and disingenuously,
you make the right call, but it goes bad.
You don't have a lot of wisdom or a lot of honor, you're not going to get where you need to be. And so on down the line. Except for Ragabash. Because of the tricksters, they can take any type of renown they want. They just have to have a certain amount. Which is why you get a more than average number of Ragabash. You seem to have found the suggested books.
As I mentioned earlier, each of these books have a suggested books and films to do. Some of the films that this book in particular recommends, since it is Wild West, is Magnificent Seven, Dances with Wolves, The West, Little Big Man, True Grit, Unforgiven, Silverado and Lonesome Dove, Wyatt Earp and Tombstone, El Dorado, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Pale Rider, Stagecoach, Geronimo,
Pale Rider is
Fight No More Forever, A Man Called Horace, and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I mean, these are some very classic westerns it's having you look at.
Continue on the
Movies
next
and
it does not.
Yeah, they're not just movies. There's books and stuff.
Pale Rider is very much supernatural.
Pick up
horror.
anything by Louis L'Amour. Really?
Yeah, for the books it says The Life and Death of Crazy Horse, The Disputed Lands, Native Americans and Illustrated History, The American West, American Heritage History and the Great West, Oxford History of the American West, the Wild West, In Their Own Words, Warriors and Pioneers, Seven Trails West, and Insight Guides, Wild West. I mean, like Trav said, Jonah Hex and stuff that's not even in here. I mean,
Wild West.
No.
Well, that giant spider machine monster at the end would be a fitting boss fight, but no. TV shows, The Rifleman, back in the day.
Bonanza.
Yeah.
Sure.
Gunsmoke. But the nice part about this is just, I mean, you can tell a really good story with this system, and you can actually do a lot of good gameplay with the mechanics and whatnot. It's relatively simple, but at the same time,
it's depending on your group, your storyteller.
You can be very customizable.
You can be very complex, and you have to know your group. Like the first time I tried to tell this, I like big political stories and a lot of levels and layers of. You see, so I had this big conspiracy.
I'm fine with the levels and all that stuff. I just hate the politics part.
Yeah, I had this big sort of conspiracy going on. It was loosely inspired by It was loosely inspired by the manga Preacher that I had been reading at the time. Where somebody was trying to, use a railroad company in certain specific points to unleash a whole bunch of corruption and chaos and evil, nasty spirits on the landscape. And it got into a lot of negotiation with land barons and cattle barons, and who's got the deed to this. And he's like, this is supposed to be a Wild West game. We should be robbing stagecoaches and shit.
We should be land pirates.
Yeah.
I did like the game that we had with Noah. Yeah. Actually, the last one that we played, it was very well done. There, we were dealing with the Umbra,
which is the werewolf
Shatter.
spirit world. That they can.
like that.
They have a secondary spirit world, which is a reflection of the physical realm that werewolves have access to and normal people do not. And this is where spirits, good, bad, and in between, reside.
But like it really is enjoyable. This is actually the only version of Werewolf I've played. I've never played Apocalypse, and Trav wants to run a Werewolf the Forsaken game actually first, so we could talk about.
I'm running it because I want to play it before we talk about it. It's part of the Chronicles of Darkness, New World of Darkness stuff that White Wolf put out after they decided, what was it, like 2002, that they were done with the classic World of Darkness. And
So you have Old World and New World, and that falls into New World. This is Old World.
It's its own animal, and I'm not a fan, but I'm still going to run it just so we can say that we've played it before we talk about it. So look for that coming sometime.
Yeah. But, I mean, this is a very enjoyable setting, and especially if you like Westerns and Wild West and gunslingers and all that stuff. I mean, it's good. I mean, it really is kind of I would say almost like a niche
Very much so.
thing, but like it's very playable, and even if your group of people say isn't into it, I feel like they might get into it. Like
find the specific genre of Western they'll go with.
But even so, like the backstory in this, it's very rich, very like everything's very lore heavy. I loved hearing about the Worm, the Weaver, and the Wild.
Yep.
And just the whole thing with the spirits and the iron, and just it's good. I like that. I really do.
Yep. And it's
Unfortunately, someone keeps going down south whenever we play it.
I have no reason to anymore. That's over. That's
Okay.
Yeah, something will magically appear.
So we're currently playing another White Wolf game, Hunter the Reckoning, which I think we'll talk about.
Take Back the Night.
We'll talk about that pretty soon too. But
we'll get a few sessions in so these guys can get some experience. They haven't touched on it before.
I've played in.
I played one session.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I've played several Hunter games. That's why it's actually the one I like.
You know, it'd be really cool when we talk about Hunter the Reckoning. Talk about the actual game. Well, not even that. They made a digital version of it, for the GameCube.
Oh yeah.
Hunter the Reckoning, the game.
It's a trilogy.
Hunter the Reckoning, Wayward, and Defender. Redeemer.
The little girl from the first first game grows up and becomes a Redeemer. It was, I think, an Xbox exclusive.
Huh.
Which is why I never think of it.
Yep.
But, yeah. I mean, check out Werewolf the Wild West. We like it. I mean, we like it. We'd love to hear your stories, your experience with Werewolf, and actually any tabletop in general.
Also, a thing to look forward to, speaking of video games, White Wolf, Onyx Path Publishing now, just announced last month, that they're finally getting around to giving us a Werewolf the Apocalypse video game.
That, and also on the other aspect, they are working with Paradox Interactive on a game.
This is true.
Yeah.
Which Paradox I'm a big fan of.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of neat stuff hopefully coming on the horizon. I mean, I was excited for a while for the World of Darkness Online, and that just got scrapped. So,
which is too bad.
It is too bad. But let us know in the comments your experience, your stories, tabletops that you think we should talk about, video games that we should talk about.
So long as it is not fatal.
What?
So long as it is not fatal.
I don't mind talking about Fatal. I'm not running it.
Yeah, I ain't running that shit either.
So
Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have been warned, Jordan. It's coming.
You will run Fatal, and we will all hate you for it.
We will love him as we always do. He'll make it entertaining.
All right. With that, have a good night.
Good night. Good gaming.